You know the hits. September, Boogie Wonderland, Shining Star. But do you really know the man behind Earth, Wind and Fire's legendary rhythm section? Ralph Johnson has spent over 5 decades quietly shaping one of the most iconic bands in music history. But now, in 2025, he's finally opening up. Not just about his luxurious lifestyle and family life, but about secrets long hidden behind the scenes of Earth, Wind, and Fire. In today's video, we take you beyond the stage lights and deep into Ralph Johnson's world, his stunning California home, his long-lasting marriage to Merced Susie Johnson, and the real story of how this jazz-loving percussionist helped build a musical empire. But that's not all. For the first time, Ralph reveals astonishing details, behind-the-scenes feuds, the truth about Maurice White's leadership, and the creative battles that nearly tore the band apart. Which member almost walked away during their peak? What role did Ralph really play in shaping their sound? And what does his life look like now, surrounded by music, art, and family? Stick around to find out all these. Ralph Johnson and Earth, Wind and Fire. Ralph Johnson was born and raised in Los Angeles, where music was more than just background noise. It was part of his family's DNA. His father was a lyricist, his mother a vocalist, and their home was constantly filled with the sounds of melody and rhythm. At just 8 years old, Johnson received his first snare drum and drum lesson, sparking a lifelong love for percussion. As a child, he immersed himself in the rich sounds of R&B, gravitating toward artists from Motown, Stax Records, and groups like Sly and the Family Stone. He played in school bands throughout elementary, junior high, and high school, steadily sharpening his musical skills. A pivotal moment came when he was 13. He attended his very first live concert, James Brown, and was blown away by the sight of 3 drum kits on stage. It was a revelation. In 1965, thanks to his older brother who was serving in the Air Force, Johnson was introduced to the world of jazz. This new influence expanded his musical vocabulary, and he soon joined local bands like the Teen Turbans and the Master's Children, building a name for himself in the Los Angeles music scene. Then came the call that would change his life. In December 1971, Maurice White, founder and bandleader of Earth, Wind and Fire, was rebuilding the band after disbanding the original lineup. After seeing Johnson perform at a local club, White invited him to audition for a new incarnation of the group. Johnson joined a refreshed lineup that included vocalists Helena Davis, later replaced by Jessica Cleaves, and Philip Bailey, flutist Ronnie Laws, keyboardist Larry Dunn, and guitarist Roland Bautista. Together with the White brothers, they recorded The Last Days and Times in 1972 after signing with CBS Records. From there, the legacy was sealed. As Earth, Wind and Fire's percussionist, Johnson would go on to receive 6 Grammy Awards, plus 2 honorary Grammys, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. With over 90 million records sold, 50 platinum and gold RIAA certifications, and 4 American Music Awards, Johnson helped shape one of the most successful and influential bands in music history. Fascinating facts and stories about Earth, Wind and Fire. Few bands have left as lasting and transformative a mark on music as Earth, Wind and Fire. As highlighted in the BBC documentary The Story of Funk, One Nation Under a Groove, Maurice White's creation didn't just elevate funk, it redefined it. Earth, Wind and Fire captivated audiences around the globe. Despite their mass appeal, the band's journey has always been deeper than mainstream success. Maurice White often described their beginnings as emerging from a decade filled with experimentation and cosmic awareness. There was a spiritual core to Earth, Wind and Fire, a guiding philosophy that blended joy, consciousness, and cultural pride. Today, Earth, Wind and Fire continues to tour worldwide, decades after its formation. The same electrifying energy, the commitment to musical excellence, and the legacy of innovation are still alive on stage. Before founding Earth, Wind and Fire, Maurice White had already built a name as a gifted drummer. Born in Memphis in 1941, he was immersed in a city rich with gospel, jazz, blues, and soul. He began singing in church at age 6 and was already performing with Booker T. Jones before graduating high school. After attending the Chicago Conservatory of Music, he became a sought-after session drummer at Chess Records, working with artists like Etta James and Sonny Stitt. It was during his time with the Ramsey Lewis Trio that White was introduced to the kalimba, an African thumb piano that would become a signature sound for Earth, Wind, and Fire. This fusion of gospel, jazz, funk, and African influences helped forge a musical identity that remains unmatched. EWF is the tale of three brothers. The story of Earth, Wind, and Fire is, at its heart, a story of brotherhood, both musical and familial. According to the band's official website, Maurice White formed his first group in 1969. Called the Salty Peppers, it featured Maurice on drums and vocals alongside friends Wade Flemons and Don Whitehead, both on keyboards and vocals. Within a year, a major opportunity came. Maurice signed a contract with Warner Brothers and relocated the group to Los Angeles. With the move came two major changes. First, he renamed the band Earth, Wind, and Fire, drawn from the three elemental signs in his astrological chart. Second, he decided to bring his younger brother along for the ride. That brother was Verdine White, 10 years Maurice's junior, who vividly recalled the life-changing call in a CBS interview. All of a sudden, he says, "I'm bringing you to California." Verdine was only 19 at the time, but already a gifted bassist. He jumped at the chance. And it paid off. He remains a cornerstone of the band to this day. But Verdine wasn't Maurice's only sibling. Fred White, their younger half-brother, was born in 1955 and was already showing talent on the drums, even performing with Donny Hathaway. Though too young to join the band when it first relocated to L.A., Fred would eventually complete the family circle. By 1974, Fred officially joined Earth, Wind, and Fire. Though Ralph Johnson was already firmly established as the band's percussionist, Maurice saw no conflict, only opportunity. With Fred on board, the group's rhythm section gained even greater power and complexity. EWF is a spiritual quest for its members. What set Earth, Wind, and Fire apart from so many other bands of their era was not just their electrifying sound, but their clear and purposeful mission to uplift, inspire, and spread love. From the very beginning, Earth, Wind, and Fire wasn't just about entertainment. It was about enlightenment. As Maurice White once explained on the band's official website, the goal was to infuse the music with messages of universal love and harmony without preaching or imposing. "I wanted our music to convey messages of universal love and harmony without force-feeding listeners spiritual content," he said. The result? Songs that radiated positivity and joy, intentional expressions of hope. In an interview with Newsweek, White said candidly, "We live in a negative society. Most people can't see beauty and love. I see our music as medicine. This sense of purpose extended beyond the lyrics." In a 2020 interview with CBS, the three remaining original members, Verdine White, Ralph Johnson, and Philip Bailey, reflected on how Maurice carefully assembled the group to embody the band's ideals. Johnson noted, "He wanted to deliver a message of hope and love and respect and raise the consciousness of the people, so each one of us was hand-picked, for this mission." In a decade known for indulgence and rebellion, Earth, Wind, and Fire stood for something deeper. Theirs wasn't a story of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was a spiritual journey guided by rhythm, fueled by vision, and rooted in a belief that music could heal. James Brown was a huge inspiration. According to Britannica, James Brown was known by many iconic titles, from the Godfather of Soul to the hardest working man in show business. His rise from poverty was legendary. He once had to leave school simply because he didn't have enough clothes to wear. That relentless drive to overcome hardship may have helped shape his unmatched work ethic, earning him that second title. But it was his influence as the godfather of soul that left a deeper mark on the evolution of funk, and ultimately, on Earth, Wind and Fire. As explored in the BBC documentary, The Story of Funk, One Nation Under a Groove, Brown pioneered a new approach to rhythm by putting heavy emphasis on the first beat of each measure, the one. While that syncopated pulse is now a hallmark of funk, it was revolutionary in the 1960s and changed the way musicians approached groove and rhythm. Maurice White, Earth, Wind and Fire's visionary founder, was among those deeply inspired by this shift. Keyboardist Larry Dunn once reflected on that influence, saying, "Every beat is there, but there's always that accent on the one, which is very African. That was that rhythm that would just stir the soul." Brown may have laid the foundation for funk, but Maurice White took it further, infusing Earth, Wind and Fire's music with distinctly African rhythms and instruments, giving their sound a spiritual and cultural richness that set them apart. Without James Brown's groundbreaking approach, the sonic identity of Earth, Wind and Fire, rooted in soul, driven by rhythm and enriched with African heritage, might have sounded very different. EWF brought together an unprecedented number of genres. Earth, Wind and Fire managed a rare musical feat, being both richly complex and effortlessly approachable. Few bands have ever blended so many styles without sounding chaotic. While most groups might merge 2 or 3 genres, like jazz and blues or rock and soul, EWF went far beyond. As Maurice White once explained, "I wanted to do something that hadn't been done before. Although we were basically jazz musicians, we played soul, funk, gospel, blues, jazz, rock, and dance music, which somehow ended up becoming pop." Their sound didn't stop there. Black Past also notes the inclusion of R&B, disco, and Latin influences. With such a bold mix of genres and a large ensemble of musicians, one might expect their music to be overwhelming or overly experimental. But that was never the case. Instead, Earth, Wind and Fire delivered a sound that was joyful, accessible, and commercially successful. The band achieved 11 consecutive gold albums, 8 of which went platinum, proving their broad and lasting appeal. The BBC documentary, The Story of Funk, One Nation. Under a Groove explains part of their magic. Earth, Wind and Fire took the deep roots of jazz, funk, and soul and polished them into a lighter, pop-friendly sound. This balance of musical sophistication and mass appeal allowed the band to transcend cultural and generational divides. Their songs weren't just hits, they were unifiers, drawing in listeners from all walks of life and reshaping the sound of popular music in the process. Sly and the Family Stone inspired EWF through togetherness. There are undeniable parallels between Earth, Wind and Fire and Sly and the Family Stone, 2 pioneering bands that helped shape the landscape of funk and soul. Like Maurice White, Sly Stone's musical roots were grounded in gospel. He quickly became a multi-instrumentalist and, by high school, had already started weaving together a wide range of musical influences. His formal training culminated at Vallejo Junior College, but his most significant creation came in 1967, Sly and the Family Stone. What made Sly's band stand out wasn't just its sound, it was the unity of its members. Each musician was treated as an equal, with the freedom to contribute creatively. As Larry Grisham noted in The Story of Funk, "One Nation Under a Groove, we were self-contained in that we were the band and we were the singers as well, and we would all contribute to the lead lines. This collaborative spirit, where diverse musical backgrounds were not just welcomed but essential, gave the band its signature fullness and dynamic energy." It's easy to see how Earth, Wind and Fire followed a similar path just a few years later. EWF, too, became known for its large ensemble of gifted artists, each bringing something distinct to the table. Their fusion of jazz, soul, funk, gospel, and world rhythms echoed the same experimental yet harmonious approach pioneered by Sly and the Family Stone. Both bands shared not only a passion for genre-bending arrangements, but also a deeper sense of spirituality and positivity. Earth, Wind, and Fire may have taken the torch from their funk predecessors, but they also lit an entirely new path forward. EWF were associated with Black emancipation. Earth, Wind, and Fire wasn't just a band, it was a cultural movement that resonated with people of all backgrounds, transcending race, age, and gender. As highlighted in the BBC documentary The Story of Funk, One Nation Under a Groove, EWF's rise to prominence in the mid to late 1970s coincided with a major shift in American society, the rapid growth of the black middle class. During this time, many African Americans were relocating from the rural South to suburban neighborhoods across the country. With this shift came an embrace of upward mobility, often expressed through bold fashion, confident self-presentation, and pride in newfound affluence. Earth, Wind, and Fire's vibrant sound, extravagant stage presence, and uplifting lyrics became a perfect soundtrack to this evolution. Cultural critic and musician Greg Tate once noted that EWF's music was emblematic of this transformation. The music is, in some ways, leading that charge of Black America, he explained, being able to move out of the hood and into these areas with nicer homes, nicer schools, nicer lawns, so there's a sociological parallel. Indeed, Earth, Wind, and Fire became symbols of empowerment, projecting a spirit of confidence, celebration, and unity that reflected the aspirations of a generation. They weren't just popular on the coasts. They were one of the first funk bands to win over fans in the American heartland, including the Midwest. Whether that nationwide appeal came from their genre-blending sound or the spread of Black cultural influence through new communities, the truth likely lies in both. Magic was a big part of their shows. These days, it's expected that major live performances come with dazzling visuals. Just look at ABBA's 2022 Voyage tour. But back in the 1970s, Earth, Wind, and Fire was pioneering a whole new kind of concert experience. As featured in The Story of Funk, One Nation Under a Groove, the band stunned audiences by turning their shows into full-blown spectacles. They weren't just playing music, they were creating magic, literally. Clad in shimmering costumes inspired by Afrofuturism and ancient Egypt, Earth, Wind, and Fire delivered tightly choreographed routines under a canopy of smoke, lights, and pyrotechnics. And then came the illusions, floating pianos, spinning drum kits, vanishing performers. At the time, nothing like it had ever been seen in pop music. Keyboardist Larry Dunn explained the philosophy behind it. We had a musically tight band, but we also wanted to give people a feast for the eyes. Guitarist Al McKay recalled how the Egyptian theme ran through many of their performances, with props like pyramids and pharaoh motifs taking center stage. People really thought we could levitate, McKay said with a laugh. They thought we had powers. They thought we were actual magicians. And in a way, they were. Earth, Wind, and Fire worked with real illusionists, including Doug Henning and a young David Copperfield, who would later become one of the world's most famous magicians. These collaborations helped push the band's live shows into the realm of legend. At a time when most acts simply played their songs and left the stage, Earth, Wind, and Fire redefined what a concert could be. They transformed every performance into an immersive journey, fusing sound, sight, story, and surprise into something that still inspires awe decades later. Maurice White was a producer and record label owner. Maurice White was never just a frontman. He was a visionary who wore many hats. From his early days blending gospel, jazz, and blues in high school, he had an ear for musical fusion. But by the late 1970s, White expanded his talents beyond performance and into record production, leaving an equally powerful mark behind the scenes. According to Earth, Wind and Fire's official website, One of his first major production projects was Denise Williams' 1976 breakthrough album This Is Niecy, a soulful masterpiece that showcased White's talent for crafting rich emotional soundscapes. Around the same time, he also produced two albums for the vocal group The Emotions, Flowers and Rejoice. The latter delivered the chart-topping hit Best of My Love, a track that remains a classic of its era. Not long after, Earth, Wind & Fire teamed up with The Emotions again for the unforgettable disco anthem Boogie Wonderland in 1979. When Earth, Wind & Fire took a brief hiatus in the mid-'80s, White didn't slow down. Instead, he produced albums for major stars like Neil Diamond, Barbra Streisand, and Jennifer Holliday, proving his ability to cross genres with ease and finesse. While much of his production work was done through Columbia Records, White eventually launched his own label in 1978, ARC, or American Recording Company. Still affiliated with Columbia, ARC allowed White more creative freedom. Through the label, he continued releasing Earth, Wind & Fire records and also supported rising talents like Ray Kennedy, Ren Woods, and Pockets. There was a brief hiatus. During the late 1970s and into the early 1980s, Earth, Wind & Fire stood at the peak of musical success. As highlighted in the documentary The Story of Funk, One Nation Under a Groove, the band scored 5 top 10 albums within just a few years and regularly packed massive stadiums around the world. Their sound was vibrant, their energy unmatched, and their message resonated deeply with fans from all walks of life. But like all great eras, this golden period began to shift. By 1983, musical trends were changing, and public interest in Earth, Wind & Fire had started to decline. That year, bandleader Maurice White decided it was time for a break. Stepping back from the group, he explored new creative paths by launching a solo career. His self-titled debut album, Maurice White, was released during this hiatus. Other members of the band also pursued solo ventures. Philip Bailey, in particular, made significant strides on his own. His debut album, Continuation, dropped in the same year as the band's pause. He followed it up with Chinese Wall, an album produced by Phil Collins that earned critical acclaim. The Washington Post even noted that Collins brought Bailey's sound one step beyond the spirit of Earth, Wind & Fire. Bailey continued his solo run with Inside Out in 1986, cementing his status as a standout voice in R&B and pop. Despite their individual successes, the call of Earth, Wind & Fire was too strong to ignore. In 1987, Maurice White brought the band back together. The reunion was celebrated by fans across the globe, and ever since the group has remained active, continuing to perform, inspire, and honor their timeless legacy. Maurice White passed away, but EWF continues his legacy. Maurice White faced a long and private battle with Parkinson's disease, a diagnosis he had already lived with for years when he made the difficult decision to stop touring with Earth, Wind & Fire in 1994. It was a pivotal moment for the band. Without their visionary founder on stage, they were forced to confront a difficult question. Could Earth, Wind & Fire continue without the man who had started it all? Ralph Johnson recalls that uncertain time vividly. We had to make a decision. Could we go on without Maurice? Would the audiences accept us without Maurice? The answer, as it turned out, was yes. Not only did fans embrace the band's continued performances, but Earth, Wind & Fire also carried on successfully, remaining a powerful force in music. Maurice White passed away in 2016 at his home in Los Angeles, as reported by The Guardian. Yet, in many ways, he never truly left the band. His spirit, his philosophy, and his musical legacy remained at the heart of everything Earth, Wind & Fire did and still does. In a 2020 interview with CBS following the band's Kennedy Center honors, Verdine White, Ralph Johnson, and Philip Bailey reflected on Maurice's enduring influence. They agreed that the music continues to serve the same mission it always had. As Bailey put it, It goes back to Maurice's original intent from day one, to render service to humanity. He left it in our hands, and he was proud of it. Ralph Johnson's solo projects. In 2000, Ralph Johnson took his musical journey across the Atlantic to Copenhagen, Denmark, where he joined forces with Morris Pleasure and Danish guitarist Steen Kayed to launch an ambitious new jazz project. The result was Audio Caviar, a sophisticated ensemble that blended global influences with jazz sensibility. Their debut album, Transoceanic, showcased a lineup of exceptional guest artists, including Howard Hewitt, Janet Jackson, Johnson's Earth, Wind and Fire bandmate Philip Bailey, Jonathan Butler, and jazz legend George Duke. The album was a testament to Johnson's versatility and global reach. Years later, in 2014, Johnson collaborated with acclaimed singer-songwriter Sieta Garrett to co-write and release the festive track Have a Very Merry Christmas, along with Eric Nuri and Raymond Crossley. The warm, soulful tune later found a new audience when it was featured in the 2019 holiday film Holiday Rush, starring the iconic Darlene Love. In 2019, Johnson stepped into the solo spotlight once again with Co Swagit, Everything's Cool, a smooth, contemporary project that reflected his lifelong commitment to evolving sounds and personal expression. The following year, in March 2020, he released the jazz single Smoothin' You in collaboration with acclaimed pianist Gerald Clayton. Co-written with Clayton, Crossley, and D. Stone, the track was produced by Johnson and Crossley and highlighted his enduring passion for jazz innovation. Beyond his own projects, Johnson has lent his talent to a wide range of artists across genres. He played percussion on Blue Magic's 1978 album, Message from the Magic, and on Stanley Turrentine's 1981 release, Tender Togetherness. As a producer, he contributed to The Temptations' 1984 album Truly for You and Howard Hewitt's 2008 holiday album. His more recent work includes collaborations with artists such as Drake, Nathan East, and Meghan Trainor, proof that Ralph Johnson's musical legacy continues to expand across generations and styles. Personal life. When he's not touring or in the studio, Ralph Johnson leads a remarkably multifaceted life. He serves as an assistant karate instructor at the dojo of his longtime teacher, Mark Zacharatos. A dedicated martial artist, Johnson holds 2 black belts, one a first degree in Tang Soo Do and the other a 3rd degree in Kung Fu San Soo. His passion for discipline and focus extends beyond the mat. He is also a certified scuba diver with advanced open water credentials and is pursuing his training as a student pilot. Away from his physical pursuits, Johnson nurtures a deep love for jazz and is an avid art collector, surrounding himself with creativity both sonically and visually. His appreciation for the arts reflects the same curiosity and refinement that mark his contributions to music. On the personal front, Johnson has built a long-lasting partnership with his wife, Merced Susie Johnson. The couple resides in Woodland Hills, California, and celebrated their 41st wedding anniversary in June 2020. Together, they have 2 children and a shared life rooted in love, longevity, and balance, mirroring Johnson's own journey as a grounded yet ever-evolving artist. Ralph Johnson's net worth and his stunning Woodland Hills home. As a founding member of Earth, Wind and Fire, Ralph Johnson has enjoyed a decades-long career that not only shaped the sound of funk, soul, and R&B, but also secured his place among music's quietly enduring millionaires. As of 2025, Johnson's estimated net worth stands at around $2.5 million to $3 million, a figure built on years of touring, songwriting, royalties, and side projects. In the 1970s and 80s, Earth, Wind and Fire dominated the charts with hits like September, Shining Star, and Boogie Wonderland. Johnson, known for his versatile drumming, vocals, and stage presence, earned consistent income through album sales, global tours, and performance royalties. While other members pursued solo fame, Johnson remained loyal to the band's spirit, lending his steady hand not only on drums, but also behind the scenes as a producer and collaborator. He later worked with artists such as The Temptations, Stanley Turrentine, and even modern names like Meghan Trainor and Drake. Away from the stage lights, Johnson lives a quieter life in Woodland Hills, California, a suburban enclave in Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley. His home is a refined reflection of his eclectic taste, a two-story Mediterranean-inspired property adorned with arched entryways, warm terracotta tones, and palm-lined landscaping. The interior blends classic California comfort with personal flair. Jazz memorabilia, martial arts artifacts, and a collection of fine art decorate the space. The backyard features a serene pool, shaded patio area, and lush greenery, offering Johnson a peaceful retreat from the industry's chaos. While he may not flaunt extreme wealth like other rock legends, Ralph Johnson's life today mirrors the values he's always carried: elegance, artistry, and a deep appreciation for the rhythm of both music and life. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when the next video drops. See you next time.